Hey, Susan. Hi, Brian.
Hey guys, the boss is here.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Uh-oh. Hey, how many of us are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Carter, are you able to rename Linda Azer?
You still
Sure,
only
yeah. You should also be able to
Oh, I
do it
can?
as well. Yeah.
Oh, I can
You
do
see
it.
where the
Okay.
top, the little 3
Oh,
dots
yes,
are?
yes.
Yeah. And one of those is
Yep.
Hi, everyone. My dog is snoring. If it's a problem in it and you can't hear, let me know and I'll mute myself. But he snores very loud. He's an old man.
Oldest line. My dog is snoring. God.
Someone said to me once, "Who's moaning in the background?" I said, "That's not moaning, that's snoring."
Let's see, and we just need...
Not gonna touch that.
And I think I can move up Nancy from...
I've been
Right.
promoted to panelist.
Yeah, hi, Nancy. We'll get to you. We're about to start the meeting. We're waiting for one more committee member, and then you'll be the first application you heard for, or maybe the only application.
I'm going to come right back in. I'm sorry, Joe, because my video is very weird these days.
Oh, no problem. No.
Call right back in so you can see my face. Okay.
Audio is fine as well.
Oh, really? Okay, then you don't need. I'll just call back in. It's not.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're just waiting for one more person for quorum. We have 12 members and there's 6 of us.
Ed Musk here.
Oh, hey, Ed. Yay.
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
So welcome, everyone. My name is Joe Gallagher, the chair. Oh, well, let's wait for Nancy to get back in. Who's our one applicant so she can hear this info.
You晓得我的懂人，懂别人。
Joe, while we're waiting, can I ask you a question about the application, the other application for the Pride event that was crossed off the agenda? Have they withdrawn or did SAPO withdraw? What happened?
I'm not sure of the particulars, but I bet SAPO, they had a discussion with SAPO and then maybe it wasn't consistent with the COVID guidelines. That's just my guess.
So it was the COVID guidelines. It wasn't necessarily about the event. It was just the event taking place now.
I really don't know. That was just my presuming. So Yeah.
I'm wondering if we can ever, while we're just waiting another minute, get a clear statement of policy from SAPO as to what they are allowing and what they're not allowing, given the fact that there might be a second wave coming. What can we as a community board expect? Joe, if that's possible, perhaps we can do that at a
For
future
sure,
meeting.
yeah. Bob and I have been trying to get someone from SAPO to come and speak, but I think they are also kind of not quite, I think it's touch and go for everyone at this point. But yeah, thank you. I'll follow up with SAPO to try to have someone come and speak.
Great, thank you.
All right. And I see our applicant is back. So thanks everyone. Welcome to the Quality of Life Committee meeting of Community Board 2. My name is Joe Gallagher. I'm the chair. Our other members are here on Zoom, so you can see Ed Ma, Michael Levine, Susan Kent, Brian Pate, Linda Azer, a public member, and Rocio Sons. So we hear applications for sidewalk activities and, sidewalk cafes and street activities and other quality of life issues. We are asked to comment on certain applications by city agencies. We recommend approval or denial and then send that on to the full board, which will be meeting next Thursday. I'm pretty sure, is that right, Carter? Next Thursday?
Mm-hmm.
Via Zoom. And then we send on our comment, our recommendation to the city agency, and they will use our recommendation as part of their process for determining whether certain applications are approved or denied. So we have a small agenda tonight. I'm going to share my screen so that we can all be on the same page. We're starting with this first application. So they were on our agenda for last month for the MOCA workshop and window exhibits, Museum of Chinese in America on Howard Street between Center Street and Lafayette Street. And it's for a sidewalk and curb lane closure for both sides. Unfortunately, the notification for the meeting to MOCA went to their spam folder, so they weren't aware of the request for an appearance. And as is the case always, when an applicant doesn't appear, we recommend denial. But MOCA then reached out and asked if they could come and speak to us this month to hear the particulars of their application. Unfortunately, the full board is meeting just after their event is starting. So we're here tonight to hear the details of it, and we can pass a resolution, but it won't be timely. The full board will get the resolution, but it'll be during the event. The event's already happening. And I think we have Nancy Yao Masbach from MOCA who's here to talk about the application. I'll open that in another window. Are you there, Nancy? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So welcome. I'm sorry about that snafu with last month's meeting. I had the opportunity, our reopening working group met 2 weeks ago, and Nancy, you were a part of that panel that spoke about museums in our community that are about their difficulties or they're dealing with or their reopening plans. Appreciate that you were at that meeting, and thank you again for coming back tonight to talk to us about this application.
Yeah.
But I'll give you the floor if you want to just describe what the event is and how it's operating and how you're dealing with COVID restrictions, etc.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Joe. And I recognize a lot of you from that conversation we had a couple of weeks ago. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to come back. And I'm so sorry. I don't. Yeah, I definitely show up. So I was like, oh, I felt so doubly sort of upset about not getting the notifications in spam. That to give the impression that the museum is not, a committed member to CB2, which we certainly are.
No, not at all. I think it's it's a weird, it's a new email address for people to receive. So I'm sure it's.
Yeah, right. But like in sum, I just think the Museum of Chinese America has suffered sort of a number of looming and active crises. And I'll just name three of them in particular. One, we did have this fire on January 23rd at our collection space, where 85,000 items were in jeopardy. They have been moved to 4 different places over the period of time since then. But the good news is, I wanted to share, especially with CB2, is just today, we've taken additional space at 3 Howard Street,
Wow.
where, we've opened up 4,000 square feet of temp space, and we have it really nicely done with a young architect who has helped us to outfit that space. And as I was, preparing for this meeting, the items started coming back from those 4 places and convening basically into that space.
That's
So
great.
so that space will be used for repair and conservation of the 85,000 items. We're naming the space the MOCA Workshop. And it's meant to be a window into conservation also,
Wow.
to help really, build the character of the work that we do, but also for people who passerbys, pedestrians, to be able to look in. And it's a welcome public space. Obviously now with COVID, we're doing it in a time slot, so people might need to wait a bit, but we're definitely inviting people into that space. And the MOCA Workshop is also the library and research center. So there'll be active public computers that people can use, as well as housing and conserving the space. So we'll be on both levels, the main floor and the second floor is a space that we've taken to help just repair that. And the repair, to just let the CB2 know, is a 6-year process. So it's not something that happens overnight. And we already have a 3-year lease with an option to renew for another 6 years. So we're expecting a pretty near to midterm stay in that space, in large part because we want to stay committed to CB2. Our main building at 215 Center Street also opens up to Lafayette, is in CB2. And we anticipate that we will be renovating that space in about 3 years' time. So that's something.
The one that was on the fire affected one?
No, the fire is actually in CB3. That was on Mulberry Street.
Oh, sorry.
So our main museum that has 50,000 visitors a year is at 215 Center, which is right around the block. So what our request here today is actually slightly abbreviated from the space, but it depends on how much time one would allow for a setup. But the active, time slotted, socially distanced hope for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which would be October 16th, 17th, and 18th, is to have socially distanced units come every 15 to 20 minutes to basically see an installation of window exhibits. Many people have talked about their reopening plans for museums given phase 4, but I think those are the larger museums. And I think CB2 in particular has been very sensitive because it has so many small culturals that don't have the width and the space to really allow for efficient use of a reopening. So we've been trying to act creatively to help, also engage the community in this very difficult time for everyone, especially as mental, pressures are mounting, to give somewhere a destination for people to go. So this is a free, non-charged event, but the windows are getting installed right now, both on Center Street, which is the main opening to the museum. We have about 60 feet of frontage, and we're installing exhibits. And then on Lafayette, which you may know that we also have about 60 feet of frontage, we're installing window exhibits. This exhibit is called Windows for Chinatown, and it's meant to be sort of an active dialogue with the broader community about some of the racism that's happened toward Chinatown in particular, given references around Kung Flu and Chinese virus and the impact that's had on Chinatowns all over the country, but more particular in the one that's neighboring CB2. And trying to give some of the positive components of what has happened since March 15th. So we've been collecting a number of stories of efforts across vast networks to provide safe devices and equipment that people have needed, PPE to hospitals, and using this vast transnational networks of Americans and Chinese to be able to source some of those very necessary supplies. And we have these amazing stories of these people working together. and also young people really trying to activate and create a voice around their own identity in this space where they're dealing with racism for the first time. So these exhibits will basically be telling some of those stories and highlighting them for anyone who passes by. But we did want to have sort of like a formal launch of it on Friday, Saturday, Sunday with stanchions keeping close to the frontage. So that I know is possible and permissible by DOT. And then also having them start at 215 Center, go down the block to Grand Street, make a left onto Grand Street, then make a left onto Lafayette and see the exhibits on Lafayette, and then make a left onto Howard Street. So the request to close Howard Street is part of a broader initiative for us to bring people back to the community, to take a look at these exhibits, and then also with the MOCA workshop opening at 3 Howard for them to reconnect with the fire. Because I think a lot of people in our broader community had a lot of emotion around the fire. That's not just Chinese Americans, it's anyone who understands their ancestry and the value of collections and the stories that those artifacts hold. And so we have received an outpouring of support around that. And we wanted them to know that we were able to collect those things. So those will also be socially distanced in 15 to 20 segments of no more than 4 people and 1 unit visiting the space to see that we were able to bring back the items. And then they would hopefully then also to try to help develop the patronage of Tiger Restaurant that just opened at 1 Howard Street. We have connected with them and I'm partnering with them that they would give special discounts for anyone who said MOCA or MOCA collections or something along those lines. They're deciding what that might be. And they have 85 seats of outdoor seating and obviously some capacity indoors with the relaxing of the restrictions, and that we would also help them bring some more patronage to their restaurants since they've been suffering so much with the opening just a few weeks ago, and also bringing them back to CB2. So helping to establish a destination in CB2 that might help further us to create that concept of CB2. I kind of like played with this, like CB2 BC, like C for culture, like maybe you could do a progressive arts and cultural thing once all this craziness ends. And I really think with so many amazing museums in CB2, it'd be so awesome to like just do that. So I think we're trying to do less than the application had originally thing. We really just want Howard Street requesting that to be closed from between Center and Lafayette. And that's, you know, to just make sure for safety purposes, people feel comfortable. But at no time are we expecting more than 20 people at any place because we know that we can't manage it. But we'll be giving out face masks if they don't have one. And we have sanitizer also when people slide in, but we will be reserving slots online prior to those days.
And it's so it's a street closure then for Howard, you said, between Center and Lafayette, and then is there still the sidewalk and curb lane for Lafayette Street, 147 Lafayette?
We were going to keep within the prescribed 3 feet of the frontage.
Okay.
You know, we're sensitive to the other restaurants on Lafayette also. There's a Starbucks now there, as you know. And my favorite, you know, La Troquet is there, and I know that they have seating there. So we want to be sensitive to other people's needs there. So we wanted to stay to the frontage and not crowd that pedestrian walkway.
And the frontage is moving the people through to look in at the window exhibits and keep moving.
Exactly.
Okay.
Just keep moving and not overcrowding it. So if they don't arrive at their slot, so we would encourage them to arrive 15 minutes ahead of time. If they do not arrive within that period of time, we would give their slot away. So there's no exception to that. They can always see it on another date, but we're not going to make any exceptions to that safety. We only have a 13-person staff and we'll all be working it for the 3 days. So we're trying to protect our team as much as we're trying to protect other people.
Right. And you said, and so will it be in 15-minute increments that people are reserved?
Exactly. We're looking at between 15 and 20. So we're doing a test run of it in the next couple of days. We did one already and 15 minutes seemed okay. But it also depends on weather. And so we're kind of trying to figure out once we get the 10-day forecast, if it calls for anything that's tricky weather, we might end up doing 20 minutes because people will probably be slightly, delayed.
And there'll be staff, I guess, throughout, just kind of moving, keeping the queue moving or keeping people moving.
Absolutely. And we have a really good team of people who are very versed in that. And there'll be markers and wayfinders on the street. There'll be people at the corners directing them and making sure there's no bottleneck we're just really sensitive to the businesses that are trying to get back to life, you know.
Great. Anyone from the committee, any questions? You could do your raise hand in the chat.
Yes. Hello?
Yes, Mr. Ma.
Yes. Hi, Nancy. This is Ed Ma.
I know. Hi, Ed.
Hi. I'm so grateful you are coming to report the program. Your leadership, your effort, your enrich your museum program, as well as the community participation, community role. I have to say, your museum has played a very active and reaching many community programs more than any social service. So we are very grateful for you to play a role, multicultural, your racial, and in addition to your museum, professional work. And it's really, really wonderful work. I always feel exactly you keep your cultural function and the community service and the continuity despite your fire in the firework, and you seems to be without much interruption. I really appreciate your spirit, your courage, your leadership. Thank you very much for your performance. Very, very briefly, courageously, to come to us and to expose the community board, CB2, to have, enjoy benefit from your cultural and museum work. Thank you very much for. One thing, Nancy, may I ask you, could you, I don't know whether you give your schedule proceedings, give to Joe. If not, I would suggest you give to him so that he can distribute all your schedule and details for more people's participation from CB2.
Thank you so much, Ed. I'm like in tears. I really appreciate your encouragement. It has been very tricky. And I don't know if I had a chance to mention this at the meeting, but Ford Foundation, big news, announcing it officially tomorrow. They picked MOCA as one of 20 America's cultural treasures. So they're announcing it formally tomorrow. Yeah. So
Congrats, that's so exciting.
So you have a cultural treasure in your community.
It's
wonderful, wonderful.
And
wonderful.
we're in a small group. I mean, there are only 5 others in New York City.
Oh yes.
And there are only 20 in the whole country that they've identified. And
yes.
the other 5, like which one of these does not belong with the other? We just are so fortunate to be. It's the Apollo Theater, Alvin Ailey, Museo del Barrio, Studio Museum Harlem, and the Jazz Center and MOCA. And so, like for us, it's been very emotional for us, and we're the only Chinese American history museum in the mix of 20, and other Asian American ones are 3 of them are in California and the Pacific Northwest. So, CB2, you've got a cultural treasure.
Congrats! That's so
yes. Thank you.
Yeah. So I will certainly give that to you, Joe, the schedule and details.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
That we do. Yeah, we'll make sure we put you on the distribution list.
I'll send it out or have Carter send it to the community board.
And
Michael Levine has a question.
Yes, Karen, thank you. Nancy, thank you so much for attending tonight. Just as a side remark, I was down on Mulberry Street with my husband the night of the fire. We were having dinner in one of the restaurants, and as we emerged from the restaurant, we smelled the acrid smoke, and no one knew where it was coming from. When we got home and saw it on the news, we were heartbroken to hear that it was the MOCA. So it's really quite emotional for us and wonderful to see you here today, and so glad to see that the museum is coming back. I have one question, which I don't think I quite understand the nature of the street closure. Can you explain to us why you need to have the entire street closed? I know it's a small street, a narrow street, but the path that people will be taking is viewing the windows on Lafayette and then coming around to the temporary space on the narrow street. So why do you need the whole street closed as opposed to just the sidewalk and the curb lane? I'm a little bit confused about the nature of that request. Can you explain it to us?
That's such a fair question, Michael, and I'm sorry. I apologize for not being clear about that. The one safety precaution we're slightly worried about is the end part. Just because we've seen a number of other situations where the congregation at the end of something, it ends up being a bit trickier. So although we can manage the 20-minute slots, but as they end up on Howard Street, people may be loitering. And we're afraid that if we loiter on the frontage pedestrian sidewalk on the 3 Howard side of the street, which would be the south side, that it would end up becoming too much of a convening space. And to be honest, we want to avoid any possibility of, that type of exposure that's not safe. And just given, we know what we can handle, I think, in some ways, and we are nervous about handling that type of crowd. And so it's really a safety precaution. So if we had the whole street, and Tiger Restaurant, because it's been quite popular in its first early weeks, it has gotten a lot of traffic, but there's a little bit of a waiting period sometimes out front as well. And their frontage actually opens at 1 Howard versus Nickel and Diner that open more on Center Street. So their front door is on Howard Street. So that's also something that we're mindful of. So we feel that the safer component is because we still want this to be an active situation where units can be interacting, but they need to have more space. So it is
It's almost in the spirit of the open streets program, open restaurants program. It's to take the the parking or take it away from the vehicle movement and just allowing people more space to interact with social distancing guidelines.
Exactly. And the Tiger has reserved a number of tables for us to be used for MOCA patrons, people who will be visiting there. So we're hoping that we're planting the seed for those people who come see us to go to Tiger and then to come back to the community, CB2, to then, plant the seed for them to continue it. So we're connected to every bit and piece of the community. Like, people come here because they like to go to other places nearby and vice versa. So we're just trying to be smart about those partnerships and trying to help out as much as we can, because we do get over 50,000 people. So that's a huge destination, and people have been anxious to come back to the museum. We get requests constantly. And this is a weekend, it's in autumn, hopefully the weather is nice. So we're hoping to take advantage of that interest to help also some of the restaurants in the area.
Right. Thank you for the explanation. I appreciate that. I think your request does make sense.
Thank you so much, Michael.
And Nancy, so that for Howard Street, it's the 15th, 16th, 17th, is that right?
16th, 17th,
17th, 18th.
Yeah, Friday,
Okay.
Saturday, Sunday, if possible.
16th, 17th, 18th.
But we understand that if community feels like any of that, if that's too much, we'll take any day. I mean, we would love the 3 days, but we understand that life is crazy now. So whatever you feel like is possible, we're comfortable with. We would love to be able to do it, fully on the 3 days, but we're deferring to safety and your judgment on these things.
No, I mean, Howard Street, and not that section of Howard Street, but Howard Street before the pandemic had started had been already the Broadway bid had been doing a play street for Howard Street on certain Fridays and Saturdays. I think they only got to try it a couple of times, but I think because Howard Street is not, a well-traveled vehicle street, that it doesn't create some of the issues that other streets in the community board have. But so SAPO is aware that you're applying for the closed street then for those days?
Yes, I did inform them with Deidre. So I was a little confused by that process, but I can resend her an email after this meeting if I should clarify that.
No, I
Because-
mean, at this point, because we're not, it's going to be SAPO in SAPO's hands who's making the decision. We can forward them our committee resolution, but the full board won't be meeting in time for it. So just, I think it's more important that you're communicating with SAPO at
Okay,
this point in the process than you are with us. But,
got it.
but we're happy to have you here to hear those details.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else from the committee that has questions? Okay, great. You're welcome to stay, Nancy. We'll go into our business session in a few more minutes after we discuss a couple more items. But if you email me those details, I can let you know what happened with the committee meeting today, and then you can use that for your conversations with SAPO going forward.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, and stay safe, everyone. And hope
You
to
too.
maybe on the 16th, 17th, and 18th, whether it's closed or not, we'll be doing the stanchions and the window exhibits.
That sounds great.
Stay safe, and let's get through this thing.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thank
Nancy.
you.
Thank you.
All right, and now we'll move on to, I don't think anyone is here from the South Village Farmers Market. It's David Gruber's little neighborhood bid that runs, they usually have like the Pickle Man out in this, at the intersection of Carmine and 6th Avenue and Bleecker where they all meet. But they're planning on doing, David called me to say that they're planning on just between Thanksgiving and Christmas having, I think, just one farmer's vendor on the weekends for that time, but that's just a renewal. So no one's here to speak for that application or against. So we won't do a hearing for it. And then the last thing is what we're doing, all the committees are doing at this point of the year is to prioritize our expense. We only have, Quality of Life only has expense budget priorities. They're basically like ongoing funding things that we've requested each year. And I listed in the email I sent everyone what our requests have been over the past few years and the order that we've been requesting them in. So it's basically just us deciding if we want to reorganize any of our requests, if there's any new requests. And the one that I pointed out here at the bottom is because the composting has been, because of budget cuts, suspended at this time. So we could put in a budget request to reinstitute the program for residential composting. And then our other ones are here. So this was our top request last year, was to have more sidewalk cafe inspectors. Seems like that would be a high priority one now based on, the proliferation of sidewalk cafes everywhere. Our second was for SAPO to do a study on full street closures in CB2 and their effect on businesses and residents. That one wasn't fulfilled yet. I think the response was that it's something that they would hope to do. Then we have asking for SAPO enforcement funding so that they can actually be going to the street activity events that they approve to make sure that everything is in compliance, which is something that is not typically done right now. Then we have similarly to have the film permitting office conduct enforcement and compliance to make sure that the permits that they're issuing are being complied with. And then our last one is to study the quantity and condition of trash containers, sidewalk trash containers, pickup schedules, which seems more important now during the pandemic because of that's a budget cut too. I think they've been better about it in the last few weeks, but that, people might have noticed that garbage cans are just overflowing because there's many more pedestrians outside and less Department of Sanitation workers emptying them. Does anyone have anything that they want to move around? Should we continue these for next year? So what the committee, we will prioritize these as we see fit, and then we'll pass those on. Basically, executive committee will then take all of the requests from all of the committees and prioritize them. You know,
Joe, can we go back to the first one? I'm sorry if you completed the list. Can you read that again? Because there could be some confusion between the standard sidewalk cafes, which are regulated by Department of Consumer Affairs, and the sidewalk dining now, which is Department of Transportation.
yeah.
Can you read back the wording on that first one again?
Yeah, right now it says allocate funds to hire additional Department of Consumer Affairs inspectors to work nights and weekends to conduct enforcement and compliance of sidewalk cafe regulations. A major weakness, yeah.
This has nothing to do with the Department of Transportation.
No, the DOT requests typically come from traffic and transportation, but we could add, you know, allocate funds to hire additional DCA and Department of Transportation inspectors.
Oh, I think that would be wonderful, because there are violations that a lot of us do see from time to time.
Yeah.
Now in the sidewalk dining. So if we could make that clear, that would be really good.
Yeah,
But
and I'll put in language saying we mean both the traditional side.
I'm sorry, until July 1st, 2021. And so we have no idea if we'll go back to standard sidewalk cafes or dining in the streets. So it's good to cover both.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'll add in that language. And keep that number one, does everyone think?
I think so.
And then
Joe, I was gonna, the trash pickups and the corner bins, that's something that we should ask them to reinstate in areas as necessary to more pickups. It's really,
and we would try to move that one up.
there's trash blowing all over the place. I mean, it's really bad. And for our community, you know, that's really important.
Why don't we move that one up to number 2? Because basically SAPO there's hardly any street activities right now. So for the next fiscal year, we could add it there to our second priority. And then keep the others as they are in that order, and then add residential composting, I guess, at the end.
I just wanted to point out that the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment, there's supposed to be a police officer out at every filming location. So I don't know what they're doing there, if they're providing enforcement, if they're just hanging out.
Right. On every shoot, Linda,
Mm-hmm.
there's supposed to be a NYPD.
NYPD.
Okay, maybe I can put some language in that. And in addition to any NYPD support, we think that there should be additional MOM enforcement specific to each shoot. Okay, I'll add that language.
And also at some point, could we consider the Department of Buildings inspectors? You know, it's not going to stay quiet forever. Certain things have already resumed construction. That's something we've always had problems with here.
With Department of Building or violations? Yeah, I think that would be in the land use. I'm not sure if they already have one, but I'll check. But yeah, that wouldn't come from our committee, but land use, which they might have. I have to go back and check.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Oh, Rocio.
Hi, everybody. It's so nice to see everybody again. I just have one comment. In my buildings, we decided to do the composting. And I tell you, we signed up a few of our buildings, and unfortunately, none of the tenants really wanted to participate or participated. So it was such a waste of money to get all those bins, and then people weren't using them. So I would say that just if your last item is fine, but
Okay.
I don't know if even should be included. My experience was negative because they came, they taught us, they brought the equipment, they brought all the flyers, we posted up in our buildings, and still people did not. So they actually said, sorry, we're not gonna be picking up your little bits of compost that you're putting out.
Right.
So they decided to cancel most of all my buildings.
I mean, maybe we can put the language that not just to allocate funds, but it's such a troubling thing because even in my building, I knew about we have enough units, and I just didn't want to go through the rigmarole of trying to coordinate it with our landlord and get it set up. I set up my own composting thing in our courtyard, but it is, I mean, it's because it can have such an impact on lessening the amount of waste that we're producing because it's heavy stuff, so it's just so frustrating. I do think it takes a lot of outreach and but you even had education and it didn't sway anyone to do it. So yeah, it will definitely be lower on our priorities towards the end, and I'll put in language saying, to bolster outreach or education programs about the importance of composting. But it's interesting.
Let me tell you, Joe, people don't even know how to or want to even recycle properly.
Yeah.
So you can't even get them to put the plastic in one container and the glass in the container and separate. They won't even do that.
Yeah.
So can you imagine trying to get them to do composting? It's just nearly impossible. It's so sad. I mean, I'm very conscientious about it.
Oh, I know.
Oh yeah, but unfortunately,
I think the Department of Sanitation has been sad. I think they expected this to take off, and it just kind of was like a,
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Monsieur.
Sure.
So, any more comments on these aside from what we've already discussed? And then, all right. So now we'll go into business session.
Joe, I'd one thing. Are there any other sort of quality of life things that have come up since COVID has begun?
Yeah, I was looking through our resolutions. I mean, nothing that we've discussed and not COVID related, but I mean, the trash.
I mean, like, are there any other budget cuts that people anticipate that might be coming that we want to make sure, that they're important to us? I mean, I'm just throwing out because it's
I know
something we don't normally think about, but right now, going into this time period, it's shocking to see the bin pickup get cut first at the expense of so many other things. And
yeah, I mean, I'll finesse the language for the bins. I mean, right now we're asking for allocate funds for us to study the quantity and condition, but I'd say maybe we take out the study and to say that, put that money back in. And then, I mean, now, it's become pretty desperate.
Yeah, and I know they stopped the pickups on Sunday, which is sort of absurd because our community
so much weekend, right?
Used so heavily on the weekends. It'd make more sense to cut it on Wednesday or something, or Tuesday.
Joe, could we use a language something like to reallocate resources to improve pickups on weekends, which is the heaviest traffic?
Yeah.
To make it clear that we're talking about reallocating limited resources.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Carter's point is a good one. Of all the things for them to eliminate, they've eliminated something really important.
Yeah, that has a detrimental impact for sure on quality of life. Yeah. And what are we saying? All right. Yeah. So that'll be number 2. But other than that, I'm trying to think.
And Joe, going back to the containers for the garbage, I discussed it in the past. I said these containers should be vermin-proof because the rat population in New York is horrible. More rats than people, I think. So if we could have something that
about vermin-proof, yes.
Containers are vermin-proof, and they have them in many.
Do we have any vermin-proof other than in Chinatown, where I've seen the big bellies? Do we have any vermin-proof in CB2?
We have a few, and I've known right on my block on Sullivan and West 3rd, they have those ones that you have to open them.
That's the big belly, right?
Trash can. But they don't seem to be super efficient.
Mm-hmm. Another thing to Rocio's point is, any of the rat programs or extermination programs, if that's, it's not something we've typically put in, but if they're cutting budgets, that's, baiting programs are an easy thing to cut, but they're really important. And some of the sites. I don't know how they address that, but just, I'm not a graduate of the Rat Academy. We might need to ask.
I
The rat,
graduated from the Rat Economy. I did the class a few times.
I don't
did
know
it.
who, yeah, I don't know who does that, but that's, I've always wanted to, but there never seems to be one for
Rosie,
class.
isn't that the Department of Health? I recall having seen a
That's
presentation.
a resume builder, guys.
in the Department of Health.
Well, there are rat-specific budget requests from the parks, but I'll add language to that, our trash can one about rat.
So the rat population is really a health concern. It's just not unsightly. It's just for our own health. And unfortunately, every time if anybody calls regarding rats, the Department of Health goes around to the buildings and they will issue violations to any building that has anything, a little hole, or they think and so who ends up getting in trouble? Always the
landlord.
building owner.
Right.
So sometimes you don't even want to call them in because who's going to get the fine? It's $300 from the Department of Health, who says they send treatment, a group of people to treat the area. And I've seen the bait stations that have never been dealt with. And you can see them the same way. They're dirty and nobody has done anything, but yet they charge the owners of the buildings a lot of money for not doing a job, which is horrible. But that's what it is.
Wow. All right, so we'll add some rat language to the sanitation request. All right, so now we'll go back. So MOCA has already had, so the application they had for us was sidewalk and curb lane closure, and it sounds like they're now trying to work with SAPO to do the street closure and not the sidewalk and curb lane closures, because she said they're just using their 3 feet in front of the windows, which doesn't require a SAPO permit. So we can recommend approval or denial for the street closure on Howard. And I guess, I don't know, Carter, can we communicate that to SAPO, or is it just kind of we spoke to the community and they're supportive type thing that MOCA will do with, if we're supportive? I guess we just pass a resolution and then the full board will vote, and we can let SAPO know that, our meeting is until their event is already happening. Is that true though? So our meeting is on the 22nd, Carter?
Yeah, it's 2 Thursdays.
So our meeting will be after their event has already happened.
What Bob Gormley could communicate to them, if it were in fact the case that we don't have any objections, or no objections were raised. We're not giving an opinion, but they had an opportunity for a hearing. We didn't hear anything from the community against this. The committee members didn't raise objections. I mean, those are all accurate statements, and give some feedback.
Does anyone have any objections to that? So it's basically for a street closure from Howard Street for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the 16th through the 18th. I think it sounds probably better that they do it this way so that there isn't a congregation of people on that block.
And can we say something in the statement, although it might not be a resolution, that we welcome them back into the community?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because Chinatown has suffered tremendously because of fire, and they burn almost 80,000 books. I think they rescue most of them. So even the mayor gives a lot of money to recuperate for the museum, and so the city hall involved a lot of work, for their recovery. So really, quite an agenda. So if they come to have this exhibit, I think expecting a lot of people will come to celebrate their recovery.
Agreed. I could put that in the resolution.
And I think you should highlight what they said they were using the 3 Howard Street location for, because that's kind of interesting, makes this very unique that, you know,
Yeah.
they're using that,
Synergy.
yeah, to, you know, recapture all their damaged documents.
Yes, you did. Yes.
That makes it very unique. You know, I don't know if this is something as we go forward, we allow street closures for everything, but this is a very unique, and I think that's important to
For sure.
display.
All right, so everyone recommends approval on that application?
Yes.
Thanks. And then we don't have to, does anyone, so there, any objections to recommending approval for the farmer's market, the South Village? Okay, so that'll be recommended approval unanimously. And then we did the budget requests. Great. Under an hour. It's so nice to see everyone.
Same here.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you
Joe.
all. Thank you all.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for so quick.
Thank you, Ed.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Be well, stay well, stay healthy.
Well,
you.
wear a
We'll
mask.
see you.
Bye.
Have a
Have a good night.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank
Everybody's
you.
safe and healthy.